Morning, councillors, CEO, directors, ladies and gentlemen. It's wonderful to be back in 2023. We're looking forward to a big year. Let's start as we always do by acknowledging the fact that this wonderful land that we call home has seen a human occupation dating back over 60,000 years. And in our valley, that's the Yuwi people. So when we're together as a community and as a council, we pay our respects to the traditional custodians and honour their elders, past, present, and those emerging. So this meeting is being streamed live and recorded and published in accordance with the council's standing orders. Welcome to our online audience, welcome to our members of the public gallery, and by being here today you are consenting, I'll draw your attention to the top right hand of the screen there, you are consenting to your image and voice if you speak to be recorded by council and published on our website. And we're also required to tell you that you may be subject to legal action if your actions or comments are deemed to be inappropriate or unacceptable, and we know they won't be. So thank you very much and welcome. I declare the meeting open. And Pastor Jazz is with us this morning to open our meeting in prayer. Thanks, Pastor.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Let us pray and ask for God's help as we go about today. Gracious Lord, Heavenly Father, God, we give you thanks today for this new day, this new year, an opportunity to begin things afresh. Lord, this morning we give you thanks for this meeting, for the mayor, the councillors and the staff, for the members of the public. We pray that you would watch over us in our conversations this morning. Bless us with wisdom and knowledge, and bless us with peace and calmness to make decisions to serve your people. Lord, we also pray and give you thanks for the upcoming Australia Day celebrations. We pray for the citizens and members of our nation. Be with those who are struggling, be with those who are sick, be with those who are unable to make ends meet. Bless them, provide for them, protect them. Be also near all those who need your comfort and your grace. And so, Lord, we commit this day and this meeting into your hands and pray that you would watch over us and bless us. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Pastor. So Somebody absent on council business. Apologies, Councillor Seymour is requesting a leave of absence for the meeting of the 22nd of February. Somebody like to move? Councillor Hassan moves, Councillor Mann seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried, thank you. Condolences? Any condolences to offer, councillors? No condolences? Conflicts of interest to determine today? Councillor Jones?
For 11.4.1.
Okay, Councillor Jones. Thank you. And Councillor Seymour?
Same one.
Same one for you, thank you. Any other conflicts of interest? That's it, thanks very much. Confirmation of the minutes. The last meeting was the 7th of December. Those minutes have been circulated as part of this agenda. I think any of the alterations have been taken care of. Would somebody like to move the adoption of the minutes? Councillor Mann moves, Councillor Green seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried, thank you. There's no business arising out of those. There's no mayoral minutes today. Let's move on to the consideration of committee reports and recommendations for this meeting. 10.1 to the audit committee minutes of the meeting of the 1st of December. I mean, that's fairly well straightforward. Are there any questions around the audit committee meeting? It's interesting to note that the next focus, we do a deep dive at the audit committee every meeting, and the next focus session for our next meeting is around inadequate planning for infrastructure requirements resulting in infrastructure that doesn't meet the community's needs. So that'll be an interesting deep dive for the audit committee next time round. Somebody like to move the adoption of the report if there's no questions? Councillor Bella. Seconded by Councillor Englert. Councillor Bella? No. Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Local Disaster Management Group LDMG minutes of the 5th of December meeting. This is at 10.2. Once again, it's fairly well straightforward. We've had cause to stand up the LDMG since then for the floods of last week. And I think the only the note out of that is that the Bureau of Meteorology have now opened a northern office in Townsville, and now they do a weekly weather report from Townsville for North Queensland. And we've had their Bureau people talk to us online at our LDMG meeting, so that's a good move from the Bureau. Are there questions? No questions? Somebody like to move the reports of adoption? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Englert. Councillor May.
Yes, we'll just draw a couple of points out of the report, Mayor. You see from the action list there that the aged care work is being undertaken there by our emergency management coordinator. So that's about ensuring that all of the aged care facilities are up to date with their evacuation procedures, making sure they have the right contact people, you know, formalising that process. So that's a good piece of work that's being undertaken. You'll see from the agenda items we adopted the cyclone shelter operational sub-plan, which thank goodness we haven't had to use in this particular storm season. The recovery group subgroup met as well as along with the environmental subgroup. So I think the previous month the other two subgroups have met. So prior to the Christmas break, all of our subgroups came together to make sure that everything was in order in case we needed to activate those. And Cyclone Saturday was held, which was a very good event to be able to raise awareness in the community of the emergency management procedures. And there was a lot of feedback that was there on the day. There was a lot of new residents to town that are not quite familiar with, the storm seasons and cyclone seasons that we have in North Queensland. So that was a good opportunity to educate the community. The emergency action guide was distributed, and the disaster dashboard was promoted. And the really important part about the disaster dashboard is to opt into the notifications, because then as a community member, you get the information that we're getting as the LDMG pretty much straight away, so you are able to stay ahead of what's happening. We had an update from our police officer, Jeremy, there, and Mark from QPS, informing us of the changes that are happening with the Emergency Management Queensland. So currently sitting under QFIS is then moving to QPS, and there will be some changes that come about from that. One of those changes will be the Volunteer Marine Rescue will now become the Marine Rescue Queensland, and that will sit under the office of QPS as well. So we look forward to working through those changes within the coming months, and that's put into implementation stage. That's it.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Item 11 is the correspondence and officers' report. First one is the Office of the Mayor and CEO for the month of November and December, CEO.
Yeah, just briefly, and in addition to the report, just wanted to say, obviously November, December, the first couple of months as for the start of my appointment, largely spent engaging with our staff, both in and out of the field, and really just sharing the excitement for the year ahead in terms of simplifying council operations and moving towards a culture of innovation and improvement. So with that continuous improvement approach, I'm looking forward to working with the team and council for the next 12 months ahead.
Thank you, CEO. Questions from the CEO? Councillor Bella?
Just a quick one, the funding received for Bells Creek Bridge, is that the crossing, Serena Homebush crossing there on Bells Creek?
Yeah, I'm not sure
Take that one on notice, Councillor Bell, and I'll get back to you.
That's Alligator Creek, sorry, yeah.
Okay. Further questions? Councillor Townsend? Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going through the lost time injuries and I was a bit concerned that we have an employee that has suffered psychological injury and he's been, or he or she, they've been off for 20 days. I'm just wondering if there is an update on their condition and what we've been doing to support them. I realise this may be a publicly sensitive matter, so if we could just get an update, I just would like to know how they're faring.
Send one around.
Sorry?
Send one around rather than being the public around.
Yep.
Is that okay? Further questions? Councillor Bonager?
Just on page 80, I note there's a large rise in the insurance claims on asset claims. Just normally we're around, between sort of 1 and 5, and last month is at 12. So could I get an explanation, please?
Yeah.
I believe those there was a mistake in that, and they're actually just the wrong way around, and that will be included in today's minutes.
Okay,
So where it's 12, it's actually flipped reverse here.
Right, okay,
It's just an error in the formatting of that graph.
thank you.
Right, Councillor Bonager?
Further question, yeah, page 82. The Assistant Minister for Local Government, Nikki Boyd, attended the Greater Woods Sunday Council of Mayors meeting and discussed several topics. And I'm just after a bit of more information on what was discussed in relation to one of those topics, which was the housing crisis, if I could.
Certainly there was a wide range of topic discussion with Nikki Boyd, and it was good to have her at the Council of Mayors meeting. We can send around the minutes for you, councillors, to make sure that housing was a generalised discussion, and housing discussions not just about housing that is emergency housing or affordable housing. It was a wide-ranging discussion that we've had on a couple of the Council of Mayors meetings around housing in general. In fact, it's affecting local governments all throughout Queensland, just the lack of ability to build domestic houses. So it was a wide-ranging discussion.
Yeah, so I also note then that a representative of LGAQ also attended the meeting and provided a briefing on those 16 key topics. Same thing, there was any detail there from, it says topic 3 was housing, advocacy and the campaign update from there.
LGAQ just want everybody to be aware that from an LGAQ perspective, that they have a focus on housing. And once again, it's a broad range of focus. It's not just emergency housing. It includes domestic housing and affordable housing as well.
Yeah.
So the LGAQ have a policy exec subcommittee that's looking at that right now.
Right, good. So the final question also relates to that. So the Regional Council of Mayors, and it's good to see the broad range of topics for 2023. And I'd just like, from your perspective, some more detail on the second dot point. And it says, promote a whole of government approach to labour shortages, migration and housing. And do the words whole of government include our council? And if yes, apart from letter writing, what do you see the nuts and bolts involvement to address the worsening housing position in our region?
The whole of government approach, as adopted by the Regional Queensland Council of Mayors, which I chair, has been put there so that we actually include a global approach to the housing issues. And once again, it's not primarily just emergency housing. It's not just affordable housing. It's housing in general across Queensland that we can't get built. So the Regional Queensland Council of Mayors wanted to include that as a focus item for 2023, and that's basically where it's at. So we haven't done a lot of work on that yet as a regional Queensland Council of Mayors, but it's been included on the agenda item because it's an important agenda item, and to back up LGAQ's subcommittee around housing as well.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Bell.
It kind of relates to housing, it kind of relates to emergency situation. And my question is, we gave warning to people at Cremorne. Could you outline what warning we gave to people that are homeless and living down on the other side of the river, and what steps we took to ensure that they were safe and that their belongings were safe? Because
QPS handled that.
They did?
Yes.
Anecdotally, a lot of their belongings were rifled in that period, so it's
I don't know, comment on that, Councillor Bella, but if that's something, we'll take that up with the QPS, because all the warnings were handled by QPS. All right, further questions? No further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. We won't go into too great a detail, given that it was back in November and December, but really just to note, for the end of December, 4 LTIs totalling at 48 days lost. And as mentioned by Councillor Bella, that $5 million for the Bells Creek Bridge. If you go over further into the report, the external grant funding is being well and truly welcomed. We see Pioneer Street there for 1.9 million, Sydney Alfred Street with the Black Spot program for $250,000. So they're essential funding items for council to be able to deliver those really essential infrastructure projects. And some of the, I suppose, the community type initiatives, the global groups were able to pick up $20,000 towards that event this year. The First Start initiative of $150,000. Illuminate, we were able to secure funding there for $45,000, and the weed control project of $50,000. And I think that's probably the first time I've seen a weed control program actually being funded by the state government for quite some time. So that is really a great outcome that we've been able to pick that up. And then if we look in our corporate performance and planning and reporting, the organisational strategy and the directorate plans are being reviewed by the executive leadership team in January. So I think that's an essential item that we keep on top of those strategies and those directorate plans so that we're able to deliver what we actually allocate in our budget towards operational capital expenditures. And of course the program plan review for program managers and their coordinators is taking place over the next quarter as well, so that'll be an area to watch. In our enterprise risk management area, the briefing was given to council, and I suppose they walked us through the journey of strategic risk and what that means to council, how we deal with that, how it's undertaken within the certain roles within council. So I think we're looking forward to further briefings and updates as far as that strategic risk management is concerned. Thank you.
Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? None of the speakers, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. 11.1.3, we've got 3.2, we'll start with point 2. We've got 3 councillors going to various conferences. 11.1.2, Councillor Mann attending the Local Government Heritage Conference. Any questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Bonaventura. Speakers, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Look, as each year goes by, our older buildings in Mackay region grow older, and these buildings certainly do tell a story about Mackay the Mackay region's past. And at some stage, we're going to get further buildings that also need recognition because they stand the test of time with heritage listing. We need to understand as much as we can about heritage conservation, and the state recognises that we must preserve our state's history. The 2023 Local Government Heritage Conference is a partnership between LGAQ and the Department of Environment and Science. And Fraser Coast Regional Council, as a host, they are putting on this lovely event. The primary focus is on heritage protection under the Queensland Heritage Act and the local heritage places that are being recognised in the local heritage registers or under local government planning schemes. And this is really, really important. One way a council can do this is through attending this conference, and it's a must for our council to understand what is expected of us now and into the future. For attendees, the conference is a chance to be able to talk with heritage officers, planners, managers from around Queensland, and a chance to hear from state agencies and industry professionals in person who are involved in heritage conservation. The cost of this conference is free, which is great. The cost to council is just for the accommodation and the travel. So I therefore support Councillor Mann attending this conference.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. 11.1.3, Councillor England attending the 2023 National Volunteering Conference. Questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. This conference is something I would love to attend, but I'm unable to attend, so I appreciate that Councillor England can actually attend. Volunteering from all areas in our community and in council provides a value to us, which is priceless. I'm particularly interested in volunteering around the following topics: the LGBTQI+, innovation to volunteering, engagement and corporate volunteers, youth volunteers, focus on First Nations and volunteering in aged care settings. So I look forward to Councillor England's feedback upon his return. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Councillor Bonaventura attending the annual Growers Forum. Any questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Townsend moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Your Worship. This conference brings together 150 cane growers and partners to showcase innovation and practice change adoption in farming that improves productivity but also reduces the environmental impact on the Great Barrier Reef. Grower-focused presentations and discussions will cover improving reef health and quality, technological developments and successful practice changes, all facilitated by leading experts in their fields. I believe Councillor Bonaventura is ideally suited to attend this conference, given his many years of growing cane in the Habana area and his interests, of course, in improving the impact on our environment. Therefore, I'm happy to support Councillor Bonaventura in attending this conference, and I look forward to reading his report on ways we may be able to improve our own current practices.
Thanks, Councillor Townsend. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Just a couple of points. There are many topics that of interest in the farming area that make up over 80% of our region, and understanding how we as a council can support them, I think, will be an important part of this event. But I was drawn to the conference more so on the following topic, and I'll read it. Showcase innovation and practice change, adoption in farming that improves productivity and reduces environmental impact on the Great Barrier Reef. Now, I'll be interested to listen to anything related to erosion protection that will reduce sediment to the Great Barrier Reef. This is an area I believe we as a council need to improve our practices. As I see our gravel roads that lose hundreds of tonnes of material into gullies and streams every year, and I see our recent seal road reconstruction suffering the same fate with 100 tonnes of material lost. And I think we can do better. And, as a young fella growing up, I used to go to school on the bus and you'd see tonnes and tonnes of farmers' soil out on the roads. That doesn't happen as much at all. They have done a great job of reducing that. And maybe it's time we start to learn from them as to how we can reduce our impact on the reef.
Thanks.
Very pleased to go.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. 11.1.5, the adoption of council policies. There's two policies put before council today. Policy number 047, which is the right to information, and policy 093, which is delegations. No questions we have to deal with those. Are there questions for this one? No questions. Would somebody like to move then that we adopt policies 47 and 93? Councillor Bonaventura moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Councillor Bonaventura.
Oh, just quickly, look, both policies are best practice policies, drafted as an audit recommendation for MRC to comply with its legislative obligations and functions. Policy 47, the right to information policy. This is the guideline to enable public access to MRC documents. The second one is our policy 93, it's our delegations policy, and that allows MRC to comply with its legislative requirements relating to powers delegated under the Local Government Act. Now, both policies have been reviewed as part of MRC's policy review, and I'm happy to support your worship.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Let's move on now to our reports. And first up in Capital Works at 11.2.1, the Capital Works monthly review for November and December. Director.
Thank you, Worship. Good morning, councillors. The Capital Works Department report for November and December, I'll just give a brief overview. The capital spend to the end of December, 43.4 million was expended, which was below our target. So it's about 2.4 million below where our forecast was at for that period. I guess some of the biggest reasons we've got there is around resourcing, both at the front end to get designs out the door to market, but also the availability of contractors continues to be an issue for us. Largely, we're seeing a lot of contractors in the area that are bidding on the same work, and we're only getting 3 or 4 that are sort of looking at most of our critical infrastructure upgrades. So we are now working on a strategy for the rest of this year and the years to come to look at alternative, I suppose, options for delivery. You will note there in the report there are 25 completed capital projects for that period over those 2 months, and quite a lot of projects there involving our critical infrastructure, both renewals, replacements and new work. Just on the safety front, we have 96% of our monthly action plans completed in November. December was 100%, and we did have 9 incidents in that period, the most notable resulting in, unfortunately, an LTI for the department, which has resulted in 23 days. Through the rest of the report, there are some notable projects highlighted, and I will just point out, I guess, the main one we've been focused on for quite a while now is the mountain bike project in the Pioneer Valley. We have gone out to tender now for the trails themselves, and we're not far away from the rest of the packages of work associated with that project, and also starting on site with some of our civil works with our own crews after the Australia Day holiday. So happy to present that report, Mr. Worship, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director? Councillor Bella.
I note that Kamala has mentioned both in the construction completed and construction in progress. Can I have some elaboration on that, please?
Yeah, it's listed in both only because there's a portion of work that we're still tidying up, Councillor, but they have been given PC, which is why it appears in the completed. So there are ongoing works there, largely defects associated with that that the contractor's dealing with, but there is a supply to the town now, that's all happening, and it is a completed project.
Have we evaluated, what would you say, water quality pre and post connection?
Well, we have all that data available. I don't have it on me, so we can come back to councillors with that data, but yeah.
I was wondering, to be perfectly honest, whether something like that could be included in the next report, just to show how effective what we've done is, rather than just circulating amongst councillors.
Yep.
I think it's something that should be on record as having been something that is of great benefit to that community.
Director.
Yeah, we'll take that on notice and see if we can get that off the treatment plants. My team's responsible for delivery, so pre and post results are not necessarily what we focus on, but we can get that.
Understand, but it highlights the value of the job.
Yeah. We'll take that on board.
Yeah, through your worship, between us we'll work that out, be able to get that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next month, we'll get it out to residents to indicate the improvements.
Thank you. Councillor Seymour.
Yeah, I see Horse and Jockey Road and Anstone Road upgrade. Is it going to be a staged project, and will it be contracted internally or externally?
Director.
We're going to work through the options for that. I'm not sure of the staging structure, councillors. That's up to the team who are designing it to work through how the staging is going to work and what side tracks they might have in place. My understanding of the previous portion of that work is we're able to establish a side track, so we're able to do it under traffic for one lane. And I'm not sure yet. We haven't worked out if we're going to do that internally or externally.
Okay, Councillor Seymour. Councillor Bella, you have another one?
Yeah, look, it's partially covered in this and partially in our financial report there. My concern is we are struggling to get staff and material for completion of jobs, and we're falling behind our schedule for the year. My question is that if, as suggested, we're directing staff at certain things in mountain bike projects and things like that, does that mean that our essential, because most of these deliveries here, to me, are things that are pretty important. There's other things out there that we're not working on are pretty important. Does that mean that they will be, projects such as this will be pushed further back as far as delivery date goes, or how do we see that affecting things?
Director?
We don't see the mountain bike, if that's what you mean, pushing out other critical infrastructure as such. I mean, all of the different infrastructure asset types, if you want to call them that, get prioritised within the area and then prioritised across the whole organisation to see. And there's not necessarily a trade-off within those asset types of one against the other. So, no, critical infrastructure, as you'll see from the first page of the report, the majority of those are critical.
As I said, yes, they are.
Yeah.
What worries me is if we're redirecting staff to, and I'm not particularly just referring to the mountain bike project, you can't pull them out of thin air because we can't get contractors, we're using staff. Where do they come from, and does it mean that we'll see less of these on the completed list? That's just a concern I have, that's all.
No, not necessarily. You're right, there is a resource shortage regardless, whether it's our internal crews, and we struggle with that at the moment, but also contractors with the same types of resources, the same roles are having trouble. And that's why I said earlier, we are looking at strategies to actually get delivery of our capital program outside the region as well, because we are pushing some of the local contractors as well.
Thank you. Right, further questions? No further. Councillor Bonaventura.
Just under 2.2, our financial performance, there's a table there, capital expenditure table, and in the procurement and plant section, I note we've got about $7.9 million approved budget. Then the current forecast has gone up to almost 11.5. Just refresh my memory, what's the extra 3.6 relate to?
Director?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. That was a programmed plant that the team has had on the radar to replace over the last 2 years actually. You may remember we actually pushed a couple $1 million in plant and equipment budget last year out. They now have that work lined up to order now, so that's why they're asking for that money to come back into the program. There is still a risk, of course, that they place those orders and delivery is not there from the sources that they're putting that into, but of course the budget needs to be there for them to be able to put those orders in. And as an example, Councillor, they placed an order for utes, and they were given a certain time frame, 3 to 5 months. That's now pushed out to 7 or 8 months. So quite quickly, something that we thought would be delivered within the financial year won't be. And we're seeing that across that whole asset type.
Yeah, so that basically almost answers my second question, which is sort of we're halfway through the financial year, and we've only spent sort of 29.2% of the 7.9 million. And I'm just sort of basically after your thoughts on how we're going to go to achieving it by the 30th of June.
Yeah, as I said, unfortunately they needed to bring that budget forward to place the orders and get that in the system, and we'll review that in the March budget review, of course, and if it does change, if that delivery profile changes, then the spend will change, and you'll see that in the budget review.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'll just add that it is, in that particular line item, it is always difficult to try and phase budget appropriately. So we've got actual year-to-date forecasts just due to the supply chain impacts. So we find that particular line item, as stuff starts dropping into May, June, is when it all starts being credited. But we are at the peril of those major OEMs and the supply chain issues at present, in particular as it relates to plant equipment and vehicles. We see timelines significantly move, so it is something that we just keep an eye on at this stage.
Right, further questions?
Yes.
Councillor Bond, do you have a subsequent?
Yes, but not to do with that. I'll let Councillor may go first.
Councillor Bonaventura.
Just on a different note, Riverside Link looks great, but the photos don't even do it justice. I was down there with the family the other evening for fish and chips. It was a great atmosphere. Unfortunately, the public toilets are not working, and I'm just sort of wanting to know how long they've been out of service. They're brand new, but how long they've been out of service and what the plans are, because this is
News to
let
me.
down.
Yeah, Council, I'm happy to answer that. They were in and out of service because there was an issue with the lock, and people, there was actually a couple of people locked inside through no fault of their own, based on the mechanism that was installed. So we've obviously had to close that because we can't have that risk of that happen again with a young child or anyone else for that matter. So the toilets are shut until the contractor and the supplier work to replace those.
What time frame is that, Director?
We haven't got a response yet from the contractor who's doing the supply, but I don't think it'll be long. It's changing out the whole mechanism.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I agree with you, Mayor. We should probably look at fast tracking that, because it's not a very good look. Down
Yeah,
there.
we are fast tracking it. I know that, but we can get back to you with the latest update.
Okay. One final one, if I may then. You know, as I probably mentioned earlier, I note the serious damage caused by the recent rain event to Pioneer Street and Richmond Glalla Road. So two little questions of that. Are we able to make a claim for repairs, is the first question. And repairing like for like will not prevent damage occurring again. So I just want to know what plans we have in place to prevent scouring into the future.
So the answer to the first question, Councillor Bonaventura, is as of Tuesday night, Monday night, our QRA funding application has been approved, or our ability to attract money under QRA has been approved. So we will have no trouble reaching our target. The target's about $700,000 for this region. We know we're going to go a lot further than that. So we're at the council staff are out there actually detailing everything that needs to be actually applied for at the moment. And that will be underway. Second part of your question was?
Just in relation to not repairing like for like where we've
No.
just had serious erosion.
So we've had Senator Anita Green here yesterday from the federal sphere, and we've had Minister Mark Bailey here. We've had QRA here as well. There's almost their entire executive team, and everybody is now talking about betterment. So we get to see the outcome of all of that, but at least we've got the three levels of government. Well, we're talking about betterment, obviously, but the state and the feds are now talking about making things better and trying to apply money to make things better rather than just replace. So that's a great leap forward from whence we have come. If we've got particularly the state and the feds talking about using money to make it better rather than replacing it. So that's the way we're attacking our assessment, particularly the gullies and culverts and all of those sorts of things and the road verges. That's the way we're approaching it at this stage.
And thank you, Your Worship, for that. And the only one, if we could add to that, would be that as we look at designing new roads, we take into account what just happened on those to ensure that we design to prevent this massive
I'm
erosion.
sure there's a learning curve out of that one.
Thank you.
The Director's nodding. Thank you very much. Councillor May.
Just in relation to the Kamala water supply, and I may have missed this in the community's report, did we do any social media around that? That was now online, and is there any immediate response from community in saying that they notice a difference in the quality of water that's being received?
Director? No?
I don't know the answer to the second part. Councillors, certainly there was a lot of direct contact with the community locally about when that supply came online and exactly what would be involved in that, when to expect a change in the water quality, obviously, the taste, etc. That was certainly happening all the way through the project, but certainly right at the end, I don't know about it. So, yeah, certainly we can have a look at that.
Yep.
Circulate that, that'll be good. Further questions? No further questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Green. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of points that I found were interesting out of the report. Page 127 under design services, they're going full steam ahead with 8 designs completed on various projects at the moment, and that we have another 16 in progress. 6 of those items are certainly designs that the community would be interested in, such as parks, but the remaining 10 are certainly road projects and water projects. So it's just good to show the difference between, you know, what has a community interest and what's just normal for us. And the only other thing I wanted to mention was it was great to see on page 136 showing the completion of several sections of culvert replacement up the Pioneer Valley. So, yeah, thank you, Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Green, speaking for.
Speaking for, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I was just pulling out one item here in the design summary report. Reading the design services have just added the design of Macrudy's Creek crossing between Reed Street and Norwood Parade to the program. This will be a detailed design update of the plans developed in 2016, which is initiated by the further expansion of the adjacent Kerrisdale estate. And the need for this road connection between the adjoining subdivisions and the link to the Northern Beaches High School. So, Your Worship, it's really pleasing to see the council's working proactively with the developers in this situation, which will benefit not only the residents in the Kerrisdale estate but the wider Northern Beaches community. So very pleasing to see that in the report.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Are there any other speakers? Councillor May, speaking for.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. And just one point around the Northern Beaches Community Hub. As we know, this project has been in the making for quite some time. So to actually be on ground with civil works and, having allocated the design component of stage 1B to the architects, it's a great step forward, and it's good to see that that's actually going to come to fruition.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Councillor May. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Worship.
You're speaking for, I don't know.
Speaking for, absolutely. I wanted to just add on from Councillor Bonaventura about Riverside Link. It is fantastic, and it's something that our community should be very, very proud of, and I know it's going to be very well utilised. But one other project that really I'm excited about is the Seaforth Esplanade development. And it's, I really am looking forward, all fingers crossed, that it will be completed by the end of this year. Seaforth is a really beautiful part of our region, and I believe it's going to certainly attract visitors, tourists and locals alike. Several councillors and myself went and visited the site in early November last year, and it was already evident, although it was still in its very early stages, what a fantastic recreational facility this will be once it's completed. It's going to be a great place for families to just pack up and go there for the day and spend a whole day enjoying our facilities. So there's a lot, we can't go into everything that the report showed, but Mackay residents can certainly look forward to hearing of further new and exciting projects planned for this year. And I believe it will all add and enhance the livability of our community and its people.
Thanks very much, Councillor Townsend. Any further speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Yeah, just one. Just in relation to the $2.4 million Barton Street drainage upgrade. And I know a resident who I've been working with for quite some time will be very happy with that. And the only thing I ask if the director...
We're gone.
Sorry?
That we're gone.
That we're upgrading the Barton Street drainage area. And if the director could email me with an anticipated start date, it would be appreciated, so I can pass that on to the resident.
Thank you. All right, thanks very much. If there's no further speakers, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to the Client and Community Services monthly review for November and December. Now, who's presenting this? Director Hayes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It's my pleasure to present the Community and Client Services report to you for the final time before handing over to the new director. So it is a jam-packed report, including both November and December highlights. So I just wanted to pull out a few key things to draw your attention to. Firstly, the MEC was recognised at the 2022 Queensland Tourism Awards, taking home silver for business event venue of the year. Proving their grade across multidisciplinaries though, the New Year's Eve River Party was also successfully delivered by our MEC Festival and Events team. We anticipate there was around 5,000 people there, though it was a bit hard to gauge because they actually spread out right from the quay all the way down to the Riverside Link, which was really nice to see that activated as well. Art Space is set for an injection of new artwork, with the Visual Arts Advisory Committee approving the acquisition of 82 new pieces. Now, I know that may worry you in terms of where we're going to be storing so many new pieces of artwork, but the great news is many of them are actually small-scale drawings or artist books that we can accommodate within our current storage. Art Space's last BMA Kids Space event for the year was also a resounding success. There were 250 kids, parents and special guests, including Santa, in attendance. And the Harvest Program, which is led by the MEC in collaboration with RADIP and CQ Regional Arts Services Network, delivered 5 internally delivered workshops which provided emerging musicians with access to industry development and promotion. So that's been a new initiative and it's going really well so far. This is a while ago now, but I'm sure you'll remember Cyclone Saturday. It was one of our busiest yet. We had more than 1,000 emergency action guides handed out to the community who attended on the day, and many thanks to councillors who were able to attend and be a part of that. Following on from that, an information session, especially for those people that were new to our region, was held to help them prepare for their disaster season that was approaching. The focus on that was around storm season and cyclones. They were introduced to our emergency action guide, cyclone shelters, how to find alerts and messages in the disaster dashboard, and that proved very successful. So going forward, that will just form part of our annual awareness program. Our pest management team have also received a $50,000 grant, which is part of a collaborative project with the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, MRC, and a private landowner. And the purpose of that is to, over a period of 3 years, trial a variety of pasture and weed management techniques to advance the reduction or hopefully the eradication of giant rat's tail. Okay. We'll keep you informed as that progresses. And lastly, our environmental health team delivered 4 sessions with 2 local aged care facilities around food safety. So we trained approximately 50 of their staff combined, and it was specifically relating to serving vulnerable people. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Director. And congratulations on pulling that face-to-face for new residents about cyclone awareness and emergency awareness. I think that was very, very well done, and I hope that becomes an annual event. Questions? Councillor Bella.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Director on sneaking in and reading my mind regarding the rat's tail. I'd be very interested in seeing that. My question was going to be along the lines of whether it was purely an eradication or an ongoing program formulation and trial. So I'm very happy about that. I do have another question later in the piece, baiting programs for wild dogs and feral pigs. Seen a decrease in hours, generally in relation to last year. And what worries me is we've had, we've had a particularly good year for pigs and dogs, and taken from personal experience out there. I'd like to know why there's been a decrease in those hours. Is it a decrease in complaints? What we see is decreased pest numbers, because I would doubt that. But also, whether we're setting ourselves up for a large expense next year or the year after once the current pests breed. Because as I said, it is an exceptional season for them. It has been for quite a while.
Director.
Yeah, thank you, Bishop. There's a combination of factors. So one is certainly resourcing. So our pest management team, as at the end of last year, is approximately half of its capacity at the moment while we recruit to fill some vacant roles. The weather towards the back end of the year also wasn't favourable. With a lot of rain and wet around, so we prefer to reschedule those activities for the dry. And I think that's probably the primary reasons at the moment why we're seeing that reduction. But it does tend to be a bit cyclical as well. There was earlier on in the period, mid to late last year, there was also quite a lot of good news in the reports around some of the wild dog trappings and things. So I know that those programs are specifically targeted at certain times of the year, and we'll continue to maintain that focus.
Thank you.
Further questions? No further questions. Thanks very much, Director. Somebody like to move the report's adoption. Councillor Townsend moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's hugely disappointing to start by reporting that council staff have had to endure yet again abusive and aggressive behaviour from the general public. Swearing, knocking over displays, abusive phone calls, and 2 teenage boys having to be escorted from a library due to unacceptable behaviour, and the bumping of one of our staff members. These are just some of the examples that our staff have had to deal with in the last months. And there seems to be an increase of it happening. We quite often get in our monthly reports. Aggressive or violent behaviour towards our staff from any members of the public will not be tolerated under any circumstances. Our employees take pride in providing polite, professional, courteous and friendly service to our community, and they certainly deserve and have the right to be treated with respect. So please, I ask all of those in the public arena that if you interact with our staff, treat them with the same respect that you expect from them. Our community enjoyed many diverse and extensive programs during the months of November and December, and most were very well received, enjoyed and supported by the community. Of course, Australia Day is almost upon us, and Council have approved funding for our not-for-profit groups to host community events across the region, which will be free to the general public. So it doesn't matter if you live in Serena, the city centre, St Helens or Kitchen Dam, you will certainly be able to find a great event near you to join in and celebrate our Aussie Day. We have received great numbers and a high calibre of nominations for the 2023 Australia Day Awards, which will culminate in a gala dinner tonight, and where the winners of the 8 categories will be announced. I certainly look forward to congratulating the winners at the MEC tonight, and I can only imagine the tough job that our judges have had trying to select those winners. And finally, it's great to report that the 2023 Sports Expo will be held in its physical form at the MEC on February 12th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and planning is already well underway for this much-loved community event.
Thanks very much, Councillor Townsend. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Green, speaking for.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Early in the term, I was challenged about the value of libraries in our communities these days, and I'd like to pull out a few statistics here that show just how dynamic and needed for the social and emotional wellbeing and personal development of our community members. So the library programs teams, with their young people services, the under 5 program had a total of attendance of 1,715. That was 888 children and 827 adults. So this is for some people maybe only the few times they might get out of the house in those early years for some social connection and some development opportunities both for themselves and for their children. STEAM Club for 8 to 12 year olds, 69 kids attended that, and for 5 to 12 year olds, 166 kids. So this is, building those skills for our future generation. Young People Services, there was 2,050 youth that attended the programs, 254 the outreach programs. Community outreach totals astounding 4,136 people joined in on the programs, and digital literacy and young adult programs, 589 people participated. So libraries are no longer the staid, boring, quiet places that they once were. They are now dynamic, they're outside of the infrastructure, they're out in our communities, and they are absolutely worth being something that we still support very strongly. So thank you to all of our library staff members and the program teams for still continuing to put on some really great programs.
Thanks very much, Councillor Green. Are there other speakers? Councillor Jones, speaking for. Councillor Jones, speaking for.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to pull out a couple. I thought that it was important to note for our residents that in-kind assistance is something that is another way in which we can help our community when they're undertaking certain things around in the community. So November and December was a total of $1,665 was given to given out as an in-kind opportunity to local events and supported these throughout the community. Obviously this is done with no charge to those event organisers. Another one that I always like to mention is the amount of community engagement opportunities that are currently going on, in particular on Connecting Mackay. So to our sort of north we have Northern Beaches Community Hub and the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike Trail. To the west we have Langford Park consultation in Eaton going on. To the east or central around the Mackay City Heart area, we have a number of projects such as along the coast. We have our coastal hazard adaptation consultation going on, Woodlands Park, and of course the Caneland bus interchange. Just a couple of the projects that are currently on our Connecting Mackay site. And last but not least, I wanted to just give another shout out. I know it was last year, but the Get Ready Queensland School competition winner St Francis Xavier Primary School, and the Year 6 students were certainly rewarded with a visit from Jonathan Thurston, and I know that that's going to be something that they will remember for the rest of their life. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Yes, they were very, very vocal that day. Councillor Bell, speaking for.
I just noticed in reading this agenda one particular thing that gave me great heart, the small acreage roadshow events, two of. While it's not elaborated on massively, the points covered here I think are outstanding. Small acreage owners come from two sides of the fence. You've got someone that comes from a town, lives in a town block, and buys a small acreage, and generally, if you haven't done it before, it's very hard to have a clue about some of these things here that need to be done. On the other hand, you've got people that retire from large properties, and generally they're from out west. Just because you've had a large property doesn't mean you know how to cope with the small acreage and all the problems that can bring, namely neighbours and different weeds like coastal weeds, that sort of thing. I think these are brilliant. This idea, I think it needs to be something that we need to look at maybe having regularly, and maybe having something standing that someone that is thinking about buying a small acreage can approach council and access some of this information. There is an old saying, to be honest, that your biggest pests are your neighbours' pests, and the hesitation there is left for a reason. Small acreage, there's no buffer between you and your neighbour, and especially with the incursions or the threatened incursion of foot and mouth, lumpy skin up north and things like that, not understanding your biosecurity obligations could devastate industries. So, look, as I said, I couldn't believe how much heart something like this gave me, and I'd really ask that we look at instituting something like this on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Are there other speakers? Councillor Bonaventure.
I just might follow on from
Speaking
Councillor.
for.
Yes, Your Worship. Just in relation to those smaller acreage roadshow events, one was held at a banner with very, very good feedback, both by the presenters and by those who attended. And we didn't just get a banner people, there were people from quite around the region and different areas that came to that event. It was very well accepted by those there. They believe they learned a lot from it. And so, yeah, and I think the idea of having more of those won't go astray at all.
Councillor Bonaventure. Are there other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Move on to Development Services Report. 11.4.1, Development Services Monthly Reviews for November and December. Director.
Thank you, Worship, and I'm pleased to present the Development Services Monthly Review Report for November and December. Some highlights from the month are as follows. The number of development applications approved in 2022 was higher again in 2022 compared to the previous 4 years, showing a continuing year-on-year increase in application numbers. The value of approved construction works also finished higher than in the previous 4 years. This is a good news story for the Mackay region's economy and a reflection of the great work of the development firm and engineering team. The state interest review for the proposed amendment to the Mackay Waterfront PDA development scheme is underway through Economic Development Queensland and relevant state agencies. The proposed amendment to the development scheme will improve usability, workability and alignment with recent amendments to the planning scheme. The signage, we've spoken previously about the newly opened River Wharves and how great it looks. There is signage to be installed in that area, and that has been designed and is currently being manufactured and will be installed in the early months of 2023. There's also been a number of park and playground renewal projects that are either complete or nearing completion, including minor play equipment replacements at Melbourne Street Playground and Bakers Creek Playground, and a barbecue replacement project at Iluka Park. It was busy at the Botanic Gardens in the lead up to Christmas and over the school holiday period, with a number of different activities, including displays at the Lagoon Galleries by BirdLife Mackay, and also Whitsunday Art Group. And the end of month sales figures at the Serenity Shed December showed improvement on last year's December sales figures and the highest monthly sales figures on current records. Online retail sales continue to be popular, and we saw an increase of 123% compared to December 2021. Yes. And so with that, I'd like to present this report to Council for consideration. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Director. Questions for the Director? Councillor Mann.
So just in terms of the customer survey results for September and October, where 20% of people surveyed said their overall satisfaction response was very poor, and I just wondered, is there an indication why and what we might do to improve that?
Director.
Yes, thank you, Worship. So the bulk of those negative responses received related to tree maintenance requests. So councillors may be aware that we've had a number of vacancies within our arborist team, which did lead to a large backlog of customer requests relating to tree maintenance. We've now had a number of new recruits started and we're making really good progress on clearing out that backlog, which is excellent. That said, I think most councillors would know that with tree customer requests, quite often, even after we go out and attend to the requests, we don't actually meet customers' needs. In terms of a customer may want a perfectly healthy tree removed and we decline to remove it, or they may want more extensive pruning undertaken to a tree than our team is comfortable to do because they want to maintain the health of that tree. So we do find with those customer requests and that once we've done them, we still have customers that aren't necessarily happy with the outcome of that. We also had a situation previously where we had staff who actually declined to have a survey sent after completing a job because we want to get a true reflection for the Parks and Environment team as to what people think about what we do. We actually stopped that occurring within the last 12 months. So that's also seen a change in our responses.
Just one more.
Supplementary?
Yeah. A different question. Okay. Yeah. So in the upcoming events, it's noted that Zonda International Women's Day is the 6th of March. It's not, it's the 5th of March. So how can we correct that in the report?
Okay. We'll correct that in the report and the minutes that go from it.
Yes, thank you, Worship. That's already been trained.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Englert.
Thank you, Worship. It's unusual to see so many red dots in the legislative time frames of late. It's fully explained as a lack of staff and they've got 5 new employees starting in January. Does this make it a full complement or are we still looking for more?
Good question. Director?
Thank you, Worship. A number of those red dots, so I know it does look like there's a lot of red, but say, for example, if you've only got 4 applications and you have one that doesn't meet the KPI, you automatically have a red dot. So, and quite often when we don't meet the time frame, that's actually because we are actively working with the applicant to try and get to an approval. So it's actually the staff taking a bit more time through a facilitative approach to get a good outcome. I know it does look bad having the red dots, but often there's a good reason for that. I think even with our 5 new people, we are still 1 person down. There's an engineering role, I believe, that we have been unable to recruit for some time. And at the moment, we have different staff also acting in other roles, which will be creating vacancies. That said, with the 5 new starters, who all seem excellent, really good and keen, that definitely gives the team a boost.
That's good.
Thank you, Richard.
Councillor Seymour.
Yeah, one has been coming up a fair bit, the silting trials. I just want to know how close the report is presentation.
For the silting trials?
Yes, thank you, Worship. The team are working on a proposal for consideration as part of the 23-24 budget.
It's almost a standing item in the report. Right, so it'll be nice to get that on the table. Absolutely. Any further questions? No further questions. Would somebody like to move the report's adoption, please? Councillor Englert moves, Councillor Green seconds, Councillor Englert.
Thank you, Worship. I note that the beam scooters in December saw increased usage and they put it down to potentially visitation to the region. That's good to see. I think one of the original intents of the e-scooter program was to give people who visit the region an opportunity to see it, and one of the downsides of coming to the Mackay region is that we don't tell a lot of tourists that you actually need a car to get around and see things. However, there's still a lot of work I think needs to be done. We know that there's an element out there that doesn't like them and that finds fun to go around for the whole day pushing them over or putting them in the way, but a lot of users maintain that aren't putting them away properly either, and we need to work on that. I'm glad to see that there's new legislation on the use of scooters, and a number of councillors have brought up serious concerns around their safety, around the general public, and I look forward to seeing how that pans out. But in general, I'm happy to see that we're working towards getting appropriate use of that. The RV strategy is being sorted out. The project consultants have completed background research and they're progressing that forward, and that's good to see. The recreational fishing strategy, ambassador program has commenced, with the first ambassador being showcased last December, and there's a lot more contact coming forward this year. And economic development officers are supporting new initiatives, including potential art trail, potential opportunities in North Queensland bulk ports, Mackay tourism for the addition of cruise market in the Mackay region. I know we always talk about cruise ships for the last 20 years and say, yeah, whatever, that's going to happen. There is opportunities out there. The initial talks with the cruise industry is that they're looking for additional product. We happen to have a lot of really high quality buses in the region because there's a lot of transportation of people out west. So we have everything we need. We just need to develop a bit more product in the region so that we give visitors who get off these ships something to do, and so we're working on that. The sugar shed was closed for additional 3 days due to the issues, getting staff, and everyone's having that problem. However, we have seen a 123% increase compared to last year in online retail sales, and visitation was up 81% on the same time for last year and up 75% on 2022, so that's good to see. And to finish off, next upcoming event is the 3rd of February, City Heart Fridays, the City Heart locations along Wood Street, Victoria Street and Castle Streets.
Thanks, Councillor Engler. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Green, speaking for.
Speaking for, thank you. Just again pulling out one thing out of here. Following on the success of the small business mentoring program for small businesses that align with the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike Trails program, the Economic Development team have initiated meetings with Trading Tracks, which is Indigenous business building support service that's funded by the local Bike Foundation and BHP, to look into an Indigenous small business mentoring program. And based on what myself and other councillors heard at the recent Sustainable Trails conference down in St Helens in Tasmania, is there are some significant opportunities in this area for our Indigenous small businesses to really provide some great cultural tourism for not only this project but for our wider region as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of this project.
Thanks very much, Councillor Green. Councillor Jones, speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship. In the report, there were a couple of things that I thought were very interesting and worth a mention. So page 228, transport and infrastructure planning. It talks about us engaging a consultant to do Northern Beaches Road traffic modelling. And yes, this is a state-controlled road. But due to the traffic issues being experienced at Northern Beaches, Council, regardless, is taking a leadership role in investigating solutions to the issues. The traffic model will allow the investigations of options for both the state-controlled road and the local road network, and it allows us to model the impact changes to the local road network. So hopefully that will have we'll have a view of the overall traffic in the Northern Beaches area. I know as council we're always working with the state, so TMR on this, and any further work that's required in relation to that road network, because we know how important it is for that only one way into the Northern Beaches Road to our community. So I just wanted to highlight that we are working on stuff in relation to that road. The other one I wanted to mention was page 231. Chamber of Commerce are also receiving some ex officio support for their Town Teams project. Council are happy to support the businesses in our community, and council officers are attending meetings and assisting in the Town Teams project with helping these people navigate the council processes in obtaining council approvals for their activities, such as things like assistance with park bookings and permits for activities on footpaths. And just a last little one, 233, just wanted to say thank you to the volunteers that run the guided walks in November at the Botanic Gardens. As I've said today already, our volunteers are priceless. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Are there other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.4.2, still within Development Services now, a request to waive outstanding infrastructure charges. There's been some slight changes to this, to the officer's recommendations. Are there any questions? Do we all understand the changes? I think it's pretty well straightforward. If there's no questions, would somebody like to move? You've got a question?
Yeah.
Councillor Seymour.
I just question that one at 16 Chalmers Street, Younger. It's a Class 10A shed, and they want a material change of use to extend it. Is it going to be extended for a residential, because it's currently used as a residential shed, living? So is it going to be extended for residents or for commercial?
Okay, so Director?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. That one is recommended that for council to waive the infrastructure charges, and the reason being that while the shed was built, it's never been used commercially or part of the use. It has only ever been used and will only ever be used for residential purposes as advised by the owners.
Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Well, if it's going to be used as residential, it should be a Class 1, not a Class 10.
Director? I'm not sure I follow that.
Yeah, I'll have to take that on notice in terms of it being the correct classification. I thought that 10A was fine for a residential shed. I can double check.
Okay, can you take,
Yeah, I'll take that on notice.
well, whatever class of will won't change the actual outcome of the recommendation?
Yeah, so through your worship, it doesn't change the recommendation in the report. It's still the same. It's no longer a part of the use, but I'm happy to check on the classification.
So long as it doesn't change, doesn't change the thrust of the motion?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Councillor Bonventura?
But if I may ask the Director, it would mean that if Councillor Seymour was right, it would need another application by the landowner as a 1A, wouldn't it? And therefore there'd be charges involved with that anyway.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. If they needed to change the classification of the building to facilitate its use for residential purposes, then they would have to. A Class 10A shed is the correct classification. I've just had confirmation from my colleague who has much more expertise in this area than I do. So it is correctly classified for what it's being used for.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? So we all understand the changes then and the replacement that's been issued. Would somebody like to move the officer's recommendation of those four officers' recommendation that council carry out? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Councillor May.
Well, I won't say it's pretty straightforward because it's not straightforward, but the officers have outlined the reasons why this motion is before us, and I think we've had further explanation in regards to the questions that have been raised, so I'm happy to support the motion.
Thanks to the speaker against. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. So the next one. This has obviously been, so 11.4.4, is that where we're up to? 3.3. This has obviously been replaced. This whole agenda item has been replaced. Now, for my edification, I checked legally, this replacement, the agenda item, is still lawful in accordance with 245D 2B of the Act. So we can consider this today, even though the whole agenda item was replaced. Director, would you like to actually walk through this?
Yes, thank you, Worship. So the original agenda item, the decision today was actually for council to decide the substantive application, which is reflected in the title of the report. There's been some discussions and some correspondence received from the applicant, the intervening period, where the applicant has stopped the clock and submitted an alternate proposal for council officers to consider and provide pre-lodgement advice on, and then also subsequently provided a notice to extend the decision notice. We're in a situation now where council has limited control over this stop the clock notice. It can be revoked at any time by the applicant. It's only in place for 5 days. Once it ends, the application needs to be decided within 24 hours, basically. As I said, it can be cancelled at any time. We're still working through it. This has also happened in the last couple of days, day and a half, but we're also still not sure exactly how the extension of the decision notice would work while the clock's being stopped. We think that has to end before the extension of the decision-making period can occur, so there's a bit of uncertainty there. In addition, the alternative proposal plans that have been submitted are likely to require a new application. They're two different, but I guess just to caveat everything I'm saying here is that we have had all this that have happened in the last day and a half. We're still working through this with the applicant. We still need some time to work through this. There's a bit of uncertainty. We've given all the information we sort of can as accurately as we can in this agenda item, and I do apologise for the lateness in it being provided to the councillors. Really what we're seeking here is for council to grant delegation to the CEO to decide this application in circumstances where ordinarily council consideration would be required, so we can appropriately deal with it if and when we need to, which at this stage we anticipate will be outside a council meeting cycle.
And with outside council meeting cycle and with the strategic move of 5 days, if we were unable to decide within that 5-day period, or when that 5-day period ended, the application would be deemed approved.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Thanks for reminding me. So this is a co-assessable application, which means that if it's not decided by the end of the decision-making period, the applicant can lodge a deemed approval notice, which effectively means that it is approved, and council's only power in that situation is to impose conditions. This one is made even more complicated by the fact that the state has actually directed council to refuse it, which they're entitled to do as a concurrence agency on the basis of concerns about the impact of the proposal on the state-controlled road network.
Right. Are there questions? Councillor England.
So is this just going through a motion dictated by the state? I mean, the recommendation is to refuse. What do we do? Why? What are we doing here with this?
What? Well, we have to.
If there's still stuff being considered, so this is a direction by the state government to us?
The direction by the state has suggested that council refuses it on grounds of the director has just outlined. Council at this stage, because of the 5-day extension program that the developer has put in, we can't make the decision today. But if we don't make a decision, we can't make the decision because under the Planning Act there's now a 5-day extension. We can't make the decision today. We don't come together again in 5 days to make a decision, and therefore once, and it may, we may, correct me if I'm wrong, Director, we may within our department get to the point of being able to interact with the developer at the end of the 5-day period and say council hasn't approved this. But if we don't do that, it'll be deemed automatically approved. And so we're not coming together before that time. We have no opportunity to actually come together as a council and make that decision. So this particular motion, the replacement of this agenda item, has requested council to deliver to the CEO the delegation to make the decision on behalf of council.
Okay.
Director?
Could I just add to that? Just to clarify that while the state has directed council to refuse the application for the impact on the state-controlled road network, the application, as it currently stands, also doesn't comply with the planning scheme. So council still has to decide the application, notwithstanding the direction by the state, and come up with their own sort of position on the application. And the officer's recommendation was that would be a refusal as well.
It's complicated, but I think you can see where there's a bit of strategic move here. Councillor May.
So just in relation to this application, the stop clock is on this particular application, you've had discussions with the applicant around there could be a different application or an amended application. What is that process then? You know, once we delegate the power to the CEO to decide the application of here that is before us now, or whatever comes, you know, through the discussions, is there then a request from, you know, if the applicant says the changes are too great to consider within this particular application. So is the process then to lodge a new application and the applicant would withdraw this one?
Through your worship, it's a bit complicated because we haven't really had a lot of time to consider what's been submitted as an alternate proposal. On the face of it, it appears that yes, well, absolutely, the changes are too great, are clearly too great to be, they would either require a new application or what's considered an other change, which is essentially going through the whole application process anyway. We still do need to work through this with the applicant, but it may be that the simplest, well, on the basis of everything we have before us now and the time we've had to consider that, which hasn't been very long, it would seem that it would be simpler to finalise the assessment of this application, which would be through refusal, and start again. But obviously we still need to work with the applicant, and this gives us the flexibility to deal with the application, like I said, outside the meeting cycle.
And Director, correct me if I'm wrong in my assumptions, that if we do the 5 days, but we will do the 5 days because we've got to, and the applicant says, no, it's all as it stands, if we haven't made a decision on as it stands, it's deemed approved.
Yes, thank you, Worship. The applicant has also, just to make it even more complicated, requested an extension to the decision-making period to the 31st of March. If you were to kick that in, that would then take the decision-making period to that point. However, we need to consider whether it's actually appropriate to grant that extension in the circumstances, in which case, yes, at the end of the 5 days, a decision has to be made or it is subject to deemed approval.
So the basis of it, the officer's recommendation in the first instance was refusal. The state government has encouraged us to refuse it. And now we're at the impasse of an extension of time. We can't consider the first one. We're asking to actually give the CEO, because of the time frame, the delegation to make the decision on behalf of council. Councillor May.
Just a question in regards to if there is a new application, will that come before the council or will this motion give the CEO the ability to decide that?
Thank you, Worship. The recommendation is very clear that this particular variation to the delegations is just for this specific application, which is DA 2021-177.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I hesitate to say it straightforward, but would somebody like to move the officer's recommendation as included in the new agenda item? Councillor England moves. Councillor Jones seconds. Councillor England.
Thank you, Worship. I don't ordinarily like being told what to do by the state government, so I'm going to pretend I'm not by highlighting another really relevant reason to reject this application, and that being that under the planning scheme it's designated as specialised centre. The application is for 21 lots. The access has been rejected by the State Assessment Referral Agency because they don't like the road it comes off, and the initial intent of the specialised zone is for a specialised centre, tavern precinct or something like that. So notwithstanding that I'm not allowed to ignore the state's intent, I'll just continue to pretend that I am suggesting that this not be supported on the officer's recommendations, that it doesn't fit the scope of the planning scheme.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? So councillors, we are moving that council delegates to the CEO decision powers under the Planning Act 2016 to decide the development application 2021-177. That's a development permit for reconfiguring a lot, and you know where the lot is on Schmidtke's Road. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we've got a material change of use, this MCU at 11.4. Right. Well, we've got some conflicts here. Okay, so if you've got a conflict for this one, please step out. So let's note that Councillor Jones and Councillor Seymour have left the meeting for this discussion. 11.4.4, the MCU for undefined use of the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike Track Stage 1. Director, is there anything we need to know about this?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Just that I'm very excited to present this report. I think this is a bit of a good news story. We've assessed the application for the stage 1 of the mountain bike park project, and we did receive some submissions, which is why this has been presented to Council for consideration. You'll see that the report contains an analysis of those submissions. Pleased to be able to present this for Council's for approval.
Yeah. Great to see it come up. Okay, are there questions? No questions. Would somebody like to move then that the MCU be approved? Councillor Englert moves. Councillor Mann seconds. Councillor Englert.
Your Worship. At the recent mountain bike conference in Tasmania that 4 councillors were able to attend, there was a lot of discussion around the appropriate way to build a mountain bike facility. Now, there's mountain bike tracks being built all over the country. We're not building a mountain bike track, we're building a trail town. That's the major difference. There's only 2 other places in Australia that will compete with us, and they're both bound by snow in the winter. So it's very exciting to see finally that, as I was saying, the major crux was to take your time and do it properly. This has been in the works for over 6 years. It's been frustrating at times, but that is the process. Everything's been done appropriately, and now we have a situation where we've got a development application. There were 5 submitters, 3 of which were completed appropriately. I'm satisfied that all of the submitters' questions have been answered. This will allow moving forward on the trailhead, a significant trailhead, not before seen in this country at least. Usually trailheads are just a bunch of dirt with a couple of dead trees laid over. This is a significant facility that will improve the amenity not only for national and international competition, but for the locals as well. That will have and visitors to the region, a nice place to come to. The stage being approved is not just the trailhead, but the initial 13 kilometres of trail. Now these 13 kilometres of trail also very hard to find somewhere else in this country. It's 13 kilometres of gravity enduro trail, which means that it's significant, it's different, and there'll be opportunity for a different experience in the Mackay region when you come to mountain biking. That's stage 1. We still have a lot of work to do with the signature trail from Youngler back down to Finchhatton and significant other trail work to do. But this is a great start. We're hoping, we're pretty sure we'll be done by the end of the year. As a result of that, early in 2024, I see no reason why we can't have some sort of national competition once the trails are bedded in, and then get the ball rolling as our reputation rolling as a major mountain bike destination in this country.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Englert. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor May, speaking for.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just really to speak in support of this. It's been one of those projects, I suppose, that started in the previous council, and anybody that has anything to do with local government, when you have a major project like this that involves the community and involves the environment, involves the cultural heritage aspect, it takes time to work that through and across our departments, also with the community, business and industry. So there's been an enormous amount of work undertaken by our officers. Putting it all in one report just does not do it justice, but this is the very first step of what is something that will be absolutely fantastic for our region, and it will open up the Pioneer Valley to a whole range of opportunities for business, industry, community and anybody that lives there. There has been a number of concerns raised through the process of this lodgement of the DA, and those have been adequately answered to my looking at the report and reading the report. I think we've covered off on the concerns that have been raised by the submitters, so happy to support this, and it's really a great day for Mackay Regional Council.
Yeah. Other speakers? Any other speakers? Councillor Green, speaking for.
Yeah, speaking for, I've said it once and I'll just say it again. I think count at least 6 or 7 councillors over this term, the past term, have visited Derby to see how they constructed their mountain bike trail town. I think we're going to be the next Derby. I really do think we're going to be the case study for other LGAs to come and see how you do it really, really well. And thank you to every person that has had a hand in this very moment in time. It has been an extraordinary amount of work, as mentioned. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Green. You're here. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. And congratulations. It's a great step forward, very exciting. All right, welcome back. Councillor Jones, Councillor Seymour. And that motion was passed unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to our ECI reports. Thank you for your patience, Director. ECI, and the first one up is transport and drainage.
All engineering stuff, so it's great to see all the councils back. So transport and drainage, we had 16 incidents across the 2 months. A number of those were asset damage, one injury to a staff member who was in an accident. The main maintenance activities, is no surprise that we did signage repairs, open drain mowing, pothole repairs and footpath repairs. Really great to see the customer survey results, 4.5 stars for civil ops for that period of time, which is actually the highest score they've achieved in the last 5 years. So given the circumstances and resourcing, that was an excellent outcome for that period of time. Just a shout out to all the staff that worked across the Christmas period. So while we do have a shutdown period, certainly civil ops staff are still on board to make sure any issues that come up are addressed, so really appreciate that. Reference to a digital asset management plan that's been prepared, so presented that to ELT, and it's probably a model we look to roll out to more of the other programs, so that looks very promising. And just a reference to the monsoon weather event that's just occurred, even though we're talking about the past month, it's probably good to actually recognise that now, given its recent occurrence, and again, just recognising the staff and civil operations are getting out to all those issues across that period of time. Did an outstanding job. The network seems to have held up very well. We'll probably expect potentially up to $2 million worth of damage across the region, but yeah, we're still doing those reviews at the moment, and hopefully have a better position on the extent of the damage certainly next week. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Questions for the Director of Transport and Drainage, Councillor Bella.
I've got a number of questions on 2 particular points. When we're talking about asset damage, slash air Telstra pit concealed in long grass, cutting cable. Now, I've spoken about this before. I have a number of points. Firstly, all Telstra pits should have a post next to them indicating that they are there. I would ask whether it was there, and if not, why are Telstra not putting them there? Secondly, and I speak from experience because I actually installed pits for quite a long period there a few years ago. Telstra pits should also be level with the topography, that way they can't be hit, they'd be slashed over. And my third comment is cutting cable. The cable should actually leave the pit. The idea of the pit is so that the cable can enter the pit and leave the pit underground and not be on the surface. So from my point of view, cable sitting on the surface in long grass with a pit that protrudes and maybe or maybe not a post is once again, like these failings from Telstra, I certainly hope we aren't having to pay for this damage.
So what's your question then?
My question is, yeah, was there a post? Was it sticking up? Was the cable on the surface? Did we have to pay for it? And have we contacted Telstra and told them to clean their act up in our region?
Director.
Through your worship, I'll have to probably grab the exact details. Certainly where cables are laying above the ground and it might have been gently repaired, we certainly obviously don't look to pay for those, but some damage we do actually get charged. So there's ongoing discussions we have with Telstra, so happy to sort of escalate that. It is an ongoing issue about that. Some of that's down to our own practices to make sure where there is adequate marking or depending if the grass is too long. But don't have exact details on those circumstances, we have to go back to them and also.
One of the problems I see is, it can be expense, but also there's a great deal of stress on our staff member. Like if you have not identified it in long grass because there's no post there, and you go and hit that, you know, you feel bad about those sort of things. So my question is, you know, why are we sustaining or allowing our staff members to be put in this situation? Because I see this again and again, and it's always Telstra pits. My next question is, did we contact the police regarding the B double hitting the damaged the sweeper mirrors? Because if a B double has come into a lane that close that it hits a mirror, that's actually an offence.
Yeah, again, your worship, I'm not exactly sure of that. Noting some of these were back in November, so we'll have to take that on notice.
Let us know, right. Further questions? Councillor Seymour.
Yeah, one here, it's got here, while driving a grader to the job site, oil cap has fallen from the machine and hit the bull bar of a vehicle travelling behind. Yeah, that's a $500,000 machine. If it never fell off and the person behind it didn't report it, then that machine would be working in dust all day, you know, without no oil cap on. So
Dust and motor.
is there a service procedure they must have to go through
Director.
to prevent that?
No.
Yeah, again, through your worship, I'll have to go back. Certainly, we're doing a detailed review of that incident and obviously the potential around that, and it looked like it was from a maintenance activity where it wasn't reinstalled. So I'm not sure that investigation is fully complete, but happy to share the outcome once it's done.
That'll be good, thank you. Further questions, councillor May?
Just in relation to the AJT crack mat product, we may have spoken about this before, but I can't quite remember. Can you just explain what that is and how that's being trialled?
Director.
Yes, again, through your worship. So this we were made aware of this, I think Gold Coast using it prevalent at an IPWE AQ conference. So where we see some asphalt fatigue or where we have a pothole repair, this is something you can apply over that, so it stops the potholes from blowing out, and it also helps with that asphalt fatigue. It's sort of a low-cost option. It's about 5 to 7 years, so we are seeing some success. It's still early in the trial, so we need some more time to have a look at that, but certainly something we're starting to implement more broadly across the region as a cost-effective option for treating our surface pavements.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? No further questions. Would somebody like to move the reports of adoption? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor Mann seconds. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor May stole my thunder. I too was curious about the AJT crack mat and spoke to the director about it, and I guess this is a great good news story and a classic example of why council attends conferences to learn about things that benefit our region. As part of that, you know, the crack mat design, as the director has said, it's designed to go over the early signs of asphalt fatigue. But what I thought was great was that he also told me that the product is actually very cost effective and providing productivity gains with regards to the installation of it, but also reducing the rework. So, you know, the mat going down and if over the top of a pothole that's just been repaired, you know, sometimes if there's ongoing rain, that pothole will come out again and we're back again fixing it. So the fact that this mat can actually reduce that rework is certainly a efficiency for our council. So yeah, I think it's a great good news story for our roads in Mackay. Thank you.
Every day when they go above and beyond, particularly with the ongoing staff challenges that we're feeling. I think they should be very proud. In terms of safety, there were several LTIs, but and hopefully the officers involved are recovering well. And in terms of incidents, while it's not ideal, at least there is learnings from every incident, and I think we can take heart from that we do learn. I just wanted to speak about asset management because there is a huge amount of work going on. It is vital for this council to understand our assets, even the assets that we can't see. So, and I know there's lots of vacancies in that department, so hopefully that is progressing well and gives us a clearer picture of where we stand with our assets. And I would also like to congratulate the staff on the 4.5 star rating, an outstanding achievement. I ask the director to pass that thanks on to the staff.
Thanks, Councillor Mann. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. And yes, I mean, the civil ops crew have done a fantastic job over the last week or so. Got to know Jamie Slimman very well, actually. The newcomer to the council, it was very, very good. He did a great job in this team. Excellent. Let's talk about water, ECI for water.
Waste.
Why don't we do waste? Okay.
I think they changed that order on.
Do they?
Yeah.
All right, it's waste. Let's do waste.
Thank you, Worship. Very exciting stuff to expose on, but we'll do waste. But just in relation to safety, 9 incidents across the period, 8 with contractors, so continuing to work with them about obviously trying to minimise those. Some of that is some of the contamination we're seeing is still coming into transfer station. Hogan Pockets tonnages sort of remain pretty steady, a little bit of an increase from November to December. Green waste, a lot processed this time of year, which is a normal process for us around the wet weather. Dump vouchers at 17.6%, so continue to have a look at those, and they're available now for obviously our ratepayers to be able to use. And just a reference to the regional waste management plan that I think council's had a briefing pre-Christmas, so we're close to getting the final document on that. Once that's done and prepared, we'll bring that back and have a final briefing with council. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Questions? No questions on waste. Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Worship. Make sure I've got the right one now. So just echoing the Director's sentiments around the lost time injuries. So there weren't lost time injuries during November and December, but we did have 9 incidents, and as I said, 8 of those related to our contractors. So we always maintain a focus on safety within council, and it's just a good reminder to our contractors that we also want them to get safely home at the end of each day as well. It was great to see the redemption rate for our dump vouchers was 12.3% for December, which was slightly higher than the reported usage for the same period last year. And I think with the large amount of rain that we've just experienced, that there's a really good time now for people to get in and use their dump vouchers. And of course, we're also in the middle of cyclone season, so if you haven't already cleaned up a yard, now's the time to get it done. Due to the school holidays, there was only one education session conducted during December, and that was to a group of 22 kindergarten students. So with the beginning of the new year, I'm sure that there's lots of Europe groups and schools out there who'd love a visit from our community education officers. So a reminder to the educators to get those requests in. I know my granddaughter's just started prep, and she loves her little goodie bag that she got from the visit from the community education team. There'll also be dates coming up for composting and worm farm workshops. And finally, just like to pass on thanks to all of the team in the Waste Services department who worked over the Christmas and New Year period. Waste generation during that period obviously has increased, and those staff work every day, including Boxing Day, all the public holidays. So big thanks to those. Waste collection obviously doesn't stop, and everybody who turned out during that time to work and sacrificed time with their families to make sure that those services continued. And just a word for LawMac, we're going to be welcoming all of the regional councils from across Queensland to Mackay in February, and an invite to all of our staff and officers and directors, and also the councillors, to come along and attend that. We'll have a visit from Dr. Paul Harvey, who's a scientist and author and speaker around the plasticology project, so it'll be really exciting for us to have him here.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hassan. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bella.
I just wanted to talk on waste, obviously, and recap a couple of things. Firstly, it's heartening to see that there's been an increase in green waste dumping leading up to cyclone season. It's a good time to be doing it. And there's been a decrease in general waste, which is a bit of a plus. So it doesn't mean that people are just dumping more. I think they're specifically dumping what they need to dump prior to the cyclone season. It's a lot easier to clean it up before than try and clean it up after a cyclone. As per usual, we get people complaining about the cost of dumping. When you throw your rubbish into that bin or bring it to one of our facilities, that's when the cost starts, and it's not cost-free. We note here that even a decrease in diesel prices dropped our expenditure there by a significant amount. However, it's still 14% higher than the same time last year. So we have to process or transport that waste from where you've dumped it to where we process it. It costs to transport it, it costs for staff, it costs for the facility. Then what is left there has to be transported out to Hogan's pocket. We're still paying the price for the sins of the past with looking after former waste facilities with their, the gas and the, come on, help me here, what's the word?
Leachate.
Leachate. The leachate. So the piece of paper or whatever that you screw up and throw away, 40 years we have to look after it. So I just say to people, the reason I like fees at the gate is, and the reason I believe that there should be a charge is, why should someone in a unit pay for the rest of us to dump our green waste, or someone that never goes to the dump pay for someone that goes to the dump regularly. It's a user pays system, and I think is much more equitable than a levy right across the board via rates or whatever.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Are there other speakers? Councillor May, speaking for.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Waste is not a subject that I normally speak on, but I had the experience of actually going to the waste station over the holiday period after cleaning out my shed. And I really just want to give a shout out, and I'm talking about the Serena Waste Facility. I want to give a shout out to the contractor that runs the gate down there and the facility itself, as well as our other contractors that come and collect the waste once it's all been placed in the right areas. Very friendly lady on the gate, very helpful. And when you look at the waste facility in the Serena transfer station, you could almost eat your lunch off the premises there. I was just gobsmacked as to how organised it was, how clean it was, and how efficiently they ran it. So I just wanted to give a shout out. It's not something that I don't normally visit the tip, but had the cause to over the holidays.
Thank you very much, Councillor May.
Cannot use my vouchers.
Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Okay, now let's talk about water.
Thank you, Worship. On to the much anticipated water report. No lost time injuries for the month, but 4 incidents. A couple of those were asset damage. Water consumption has remained pretty steady, and obviously with the recent rain, you see a significant decrease. Most like Facebook post actually was that Kamala residents enjoy improved water quality, so we have done a little bit of media there, but good to see that was recognised. Again, on the customer survey results, so 4.75 stars out of 5 for water networks, which is an outstanding result, and again, one of the highest they recorded. And just again, recognition, especially with that event, so the water team obviously working consistently across that period with the amount of rain we had. Obviously that infiltrates our sewage network, and we have lots of issues, and staff did an amazing job to make sure that we limited the impact to residents as much as we can, and I think that's testimony to the staff and what they've done over that period, so it's quite outstanding. Happy to take any questions.
Questions? No questions?
Just in
One
relation
question.
to that, given the event that we did have, did we get any complaints from the Serena area? We have that problem area down there. Was there any complaints?
Yeah, through your worship, I haven't heard, but I probably need to chase that up. I mean, sometimes obviously staff are aware that we get problem issues and they're proactive in getting out there. Certainly the ones that I was made aware of were more in the Mackay region, but I will chase that up, and that might be a good indication of the work we've been trying to do in that Serena area to minimise the impact that we have seen previously.
Thanks.
No further questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Worship. So again, just echoing the Director's sentiments, beginning on a positive note and just congratulating the whole Water Services team on their outstanding customer survey results. So they actually managed to outdo the Transport and Drainage team with their 4.5 and achieved 4.75. So given the issues that we've had with recruitment and resourcing our teams, that those high standards of customer service are absolutely outstanding. And also, again, as the Director said, that the service that the Water Services team has provided to the community through this rain event and ensuring that we haven't had issues with sewage overflows and other problems with our water supply is fantastic. So kudos to all of the team involved with that. Again, focusing on safety, there weren't any lost time injuries in this department for November or December, and only 4 incidents reported. So it's again just an opportunity to reinforce that safety message and just ensure that staff remain vigilant while on the job. So we did see the water usage drop off in November and December, and I'm sure we will see that again in January with all of the rain. What really hasn't changed though is the number of leak notifications that are being reported. There were 2,035 leaks ceased during that period for residential properties, with an average of 7 days for those leaks to cease. But there was another 2,075 new leaks generated, so we've actually come out of a deficit. So just a reminder to residents to just monitor your water usage. If you haven't already joined up to My H2O, I will mention it again, just so that you get those notifications. And I know from previous experience myself, when I got a notification from council, it was just that a toilet that I didn't use very often was running and using a larger amount of water than it normally used. And that report, it's an easy fix. So just keep an eye on those things. And finally, great positive community feedback related to the Kamala water treatment plant online. I'm sure residents in that area are enjoying better quality of water. And as mentioned, Councillor May, that was actually the highest engagement they received over that period for that social media post from the residents. And I haven't read the comments, but from the feedback that I've talked to people in the area, that they're very happy with the new, the improved water supply in the area.
Thanks, Councillor Hassan. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Thank you. Just in relation to the water leaks, Councillor Hassan, even over the period of December, for some residents it was a little bit difficult to get someone in to repair those leaks. And my sister was one of those who called the day after Christmas, or the first notification she got was after Christmas. The plumber was on holidays, etc., etc. Fortunately, it was only a very small leak, and therefore even the plumber, she did contact him and he said, look, we will come as soon as we can. We're on break at the moment, and you know, it was an extra few days. But hopefully in the next coming months people do start to look into those and try and reduce those numbers. So.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Org Services at 11.6.1, the Org Services monthly review for November and December, and welcome to our new director, and congratulations, Director, on your appointment to Org Services.
Thank you.
And I know that you weren't in the chair here, but this is your report today.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to present the Organisational Services report to you for the first time. So some of the highlights I'd like to note includes the introduction of the customer service concierge role. So you might have seen as you enter the admin building now, people are greeted personally as they walk in and assisted with whatever their transaction may be that they need to complete on that day. Since we've had that role in place, 43% of visitors to the main admin building have had their query answered at that first point of contact or resolved, so that's been very successful. Cybersecurity continues to be a focus with staff and contractor training delivered monthly. And we've recently started discussions with the Resource Industry Network regarding partnering in our next mentoring program with registrations due to open in February. It's proven very successful in the past with mentees and mentors drawn from both inside and outside our organisation. Across November and December, more than 2,800 customers took the time to complete an after-call survey for our call centre to give their feedback to the team. And we recorded 97% satisfaction, which is a great outcome. Internal customers have also provided excellent feedback to the Information Services team, with internal customer surveys showing a 99% satisfaction. Local spend is tracking well year to date, with 73% of our council spend within the Mackay region. Across November and December, our local spend totalled $21.8 million. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Director. Questions for the Director on the Org Services report? Councillor May.
Just in regards to the recruitment activity, and you've got November and December there, and we're looking at the figures, we're probably, what we go out to advertise, we're probably only filling 50% of them. Is there I suppose, anything that's significant or carries forward across those positions as to why we can't actually employ people? If they've been advertised, we've got applicants, what's the main stumbling block, I suppose, to actually fill all of those positions we advertise?
Yes. Thank you. Several reasons, and this time of year is traditionally quite challenging to recruit. We do have some cut-off periods and things that we work with for our recruitment team as well over that period, so, which does tend to restrict what we can do. We are seeing that some of our more technical roles are extremely hard to recruit and require multiple times going out. I've recently had that experience myself, and I can say just from experience, having gone through the process and not being able to fill the role despite having applicants, it was due to the nature of their skills quality experience and education didn't actually meet the requirements that we were looking for. So those sorts of things are very challenging, but we are also trying to think a bit laterally about that and think, how can we bring people in and support them through on-the-job training or other types of things that would allow us to fill roles. There are simply some, such as our environmental health officer roles, where we can't do that. You require the degree when you start to actually be able to go in and perform assessments. So some of those things are a little bit tricky for us, but we're working hard to get their outcomes.
Further questions? No further questions. Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor Mann seconds. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. There was only one item in the report that I thought that I would mention, and that is on page 387, the Works for Queensland money. Mentions that it's actually been exhausted for round 4 for this financial year, and but we still have an allocation for next year because it was a 3-year deal. But post this, we have no information as yet. So I guess I'm just really curious about financially. It's going to be interesting times ahead, and we'll see what happens. But you know, the Work for Queensland money has certainly been a godsend for council through this period over the last couple of years. So yeah, it's interesting to see what will come of that. Thank you.
Speaker against? Any further speakers? Councillor Mann, speaking for.
Speaking for, thank you, Worship. I'd like to echo your congratulations to Director Hayes on her appointment to this directorate. She certainly has a lot of experience with our council, and I'm looking forward to working with her in this directorate. In terms of safety, no LTIs for the financial year, which is really pleasing to see. And interesting to note that most of the incidents were non-staff members or contractors. So again, you know, learnings for all of us, and hopefully we can continue to see a decrease in that, but I do always offer my thanks to staff for working safely and their commitment to that. I've spoken lots of times on business improvements, and it's always pleasing to see the number that are proceeding. And to me, it's really, really important that we continue to challenge ourselves on the way we do things to find more efficient ways, and our region has a right to expect that we will be looking to do that in all cases. Abandoned calls also continues to be a cause of concern for me, and I have raised the question many times in meetings about staffing levels. I'm pleased to hear that council is continuing to look for, is looking to review current practices, and hopefully, in light of that, ensuring if our staff are feeling pressure that there's appropriate support mechanisms in place for them. And a thank you to staff in all programs in the directorate for the very busy lead up to the conclusion of 2022. I'm looking forward to a really good year this year.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mann. Are there other speakers? Speaking for, Councillor Bonaventura.
Yes, thank you. Just in relation to our general requests and snaps and solve, and I've been watching this graph over the past 12 months quite closely, and it's now the last couple of months where the snaps and solve numbers are well above the general requests, and it's something that I will continue to follow, but also look into as far as budget process in this coming term to see whether it may be something we need to look in a little bit more seriously.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have 2 strategic financial reports to consider, one for November and one for December, obviously. We have to deal with them individually because that's what we've got to do. So, Director, are you going to take us through those? We'll deal with November first.
If you're happy that I might offer a comment on the November one since it's a bit aged, but I think you do the same.
Sure, okay. Well, we'll deal with the November one because that's an agenda item. Are there any questions around November?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I just wanted to ask a question around page 425. It talks about the maturity of some of our investments, and one of them was actually in December 2022, and we've got one this year in July coming up. So I'm just curious what our plans are. Are we going to be reinvesting or that type of thing?
Director?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. We put out a call every 2 weeks to the market to understand what the current rates are being offered by all of the banks, and we compare that with what the Queensland Treasury offers us. So our cash at the moment sits with Queensland Treasury, and we compare the rates offered by the bank, and if they're favourable compared to QTC, we will engage in a term deposit with the most advantageous institution. Otherwise, we have some excellent rates from QTC with our cash at home.
Okay. Thank you, Worship.
If no further questions, would somebody like to move then the strategic financial report for November 22 be adopted? Councillor May moves, Councillor Jones seconds, Councillor May. Okay, we'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. All right, let's do the strategic financial report for December.
Thank you, Worship. This report was prepared prior to the finalisation of the December budget review, so I just want to preface it with that, which will be presented shortly and contains the latest update on our position. But this particular strategic report highlights that revenue is ahead of forecast currently. with a single large supplementary levy rated during December, which is also impacting our rate arrears reported for the current financial year. Interest income is well ahead of forecast due to the increasingly favourable rates on our investments, which we expect to continue for the rest of this financial year. Operating expenditure is tracking well overall, with current spend at 99% of the year-to-date budget. We will continue to monitor materials and services with spend in this category, sitting just under the average at 97%. Capital project delivery is currently 2.4 million behind the year-to-date budget, with 43.4 million expended as at the end of December. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director? Councillor Bella.
Having looked at the synopsis of the previous item, we're at the end of November, we're 32% behind in capital, 32% capital delivery, and in this one we're at 38.1. One would think that we'd be close to 50%, but considering that if you look at it, we should be completing, and I know everything's on an average, but 8% a month. We actually fell behind in the from November to December, fell behind that 8%. I note that you're saying there's ongoing risk in project delivery. Would the fact that we're continuing to fall behind in that delivery make that risk significant?
Director.
Thank you, Worship. Absolutely, the risk is there at present, something that we're monitoring closely. The way the forecast generally runs for our capital program, though, is that the bulk of the money is spent in the second half of the financial year rather than a 50-50 split across the two halves of the year. So it wouldn't be unusual to see more of a 60-40 kind of a split between the two. We have had, which at the time of preparing the reports, all the details weren't known, obviously the recent rain event has not just impacted our own project delivery, but all around the region. So the impacts of that are still being worked through as well and will be communicated.
Okay. See ya.
Just to add to that, Councillor Bella, I think one of the broader things here to address for future budget is actually correct phasing of our financials. So, and typically we know that December, January are quieter periods with leave, etc. And I think that just needs to be better reflected in phasing so that we can see an accurate year-to-date forecast, because whilst a year typically, we can't just break up, the percentage per month by year to get an
As I said, everything's on an average, however.
So we'll look for future budget. We can expect to see a better, accurate representation of our forecast.
Okay. Further questions? No further questions? Would somebody like to move the reports of adoption? Councillor Jones, please. Second by Councillor Mack. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. We went through the last one really quickly. I actually had some speaking notes, but that's okay. We'll do December. Your Worship, the areas of concern haven't changed from November to December. Obviously, it still remains a focus for Council in relation to things such as COVID data cleansing, project expenditure and our inflation rate. The December report shows us that the budget analysis, we have some underspends in sales and contract rental income and fees and charges, and our finance costs are also reporting small unfavourable variances, which we're going to monitor. In the previous month we did actually have our rate arrears down to 3%, which is a lesser burden on our ratepayers, and this month it's just popped up slightly to 3.6%. It shows that on page 444, that our capital expenditure is not quite hitting the mark, and our KPIs, the operating surplus, is certainly a different story from 20% last month to December being 6.2%. Our commercial businesses are both operating really well, and I'd like to commend this report for approval. Thank you.
Councillor Jones, speaker against. Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.6.4, the lease renewal for Dow's Creek Hall. It's pretty well straightforward, isn't it? Is there any questions associated with this one? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor Mann seconds, Councillor Jones.
Oh, fairly self-explanatory, Your Worship, but just to give a plug to the committee that they're doing great things out there. They love their hall and they do a lot of things for their community out there, so happy to put this forward.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. 11.6.5, the contractual arrangements for a tendering exemption of information communication technology specialised and sole supplier arrangements. This is a lengthy report, but it is fairly well straightforward. So, Director, do you need to say anything to this?
Thank you, Worship. I would just like to highlight that while it is a very list, right now, having access to those current suppliers enables continuity for our staff and customers for all of our current systems that we will use and procure through them. So supporting the recommendation today will enable us to keep those contractual arrangements in place and enter into a subsequent agreement when they expire to keep that continuity.
Questions? Councillor Bowen-Jura.
Just, have we had it into this format before, Your Worship? It's been in this format?
Have we had it in this format?
Yeah.
I think it's been before the council.
Yeah, well, it didn't surprise me, the format, so I must have seen something like this before, but...
Yeah. No, just just the list of names. I don't recall such a long list in previous years, but I'm quite happy with what's there. But
That's pretty good. No further questions? Would somebody like to move the reports of adoption? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Mann. Okay, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. The budget review, 11.6.6, the budget review for December. Director?
Thank you, Worship. So the December budget review incorporates changes to both our operational and capital budget, the details of which are set out within the body of the report. Of note, there has been a change to a number of revenue lines, with the most significant being a variation of 1.8 million to interest received. Now, our investments continue to attract better than forecast returns, with Council's portfolio currently seeing returns of over 3% at present. In the expenses category, there have also been a number of alterations, with the most significant being an underspend in wages and salaries and an adjustment to depreciation. The underspend in wages and salaries is primarily due to staff vacancies across the organisation and is offset by an increase in consultant and contractor charges. The net impact of the operational budget changes is an increase to our forecast operating surplus, which has been amended from 569,000 to 980,000. Capital expenditure is also forecast to increase, with the net impact of the noted changes seeing an overall increase of $4 million. This will see the current capital year budget move from 113 million to 117 million.
Right, okay, thanks very much. Questions? Any questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor May?
Thank you very much, Worship. It's an extensive report and councillors had briefings on the budget review. I suppose it really just highlights the volatile situation, the pressure on resources, the pressure on costs and expenditure. We're very fortunate to raise a bit more revenue through our interest and being able to capture some of that there, but I think it really highlights the difficulties under which we're operating at the moment, and to have a budget review of such extended number of items, I think just waylays to that pressure that we're under and the staff is under. So happy to move and support the budget review.
Thank you very much. Speaker against? Any other speakers? The motion is that the changes identified in the December budget review be adopted and become the approved amended budget. So moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. There's no petitions to receive today. We've got a tender, number 27, for the Pioneer River Levee Boletta Gardens to Mackay Court. Are there, I mean, this is straightforward, isn't it, this, Director, in terms of the tender? Yep. Are there questions? No questions? Would somebody... You do have a question, Councillor May?
So, and probably should have asked it in the budget review, but the budget deficit here in this particular project, was that captured in our budget review or that will be in the next one?
That's a good question. I think it might have been picked up already in the December budget review.
I'll look at that.
Thanks.
Come back to us. Okay, further questions? If there's no further questions, would somebody like to move that the tender for Boletta Gardens to Mackay Court levy be adopted? Councillor Englert moves, Councillor Jones seconds. Councillor Englert.
I'm preparing your notes for this one, Mayor. It's pretty straightforward, but if someone else wants to speak to it.
One of the speakers, you want to speak to it, Councillor May?
Yeah, I think it's important to say something about it. This is the missing part of our levy system, and council has been working on getting that section completed. So to be able to go to contract to tender and get a contractor to be able to do that, I think the people at Valletta Gardens and Cave Court will be very pleased that that job is going to be undertaken.
You hear. Speaker against? Any other speakers? This is quite a step forward for us, and of course we're doing it with federal money as well, so it's a fantastic outcome. Put the motion, those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. There's no notified motions, and we move on to public participation. So welcome to the members of the public. Just so you can you know the rules of engagement, if you are going to speak today, we've got several listed to speak. You get 3 minutes to present to council. This is not an interactive session. We are here to listen to you, and this is not, as I said, you can't expect any answers from council at this stage. If there are answers required, we'll direct the CEO to get in touch with you and deliver those answers at a later date. So the first one is Ms McDonald. No?
Jean had to leave respectively, so I'm going
So what's your name?
Rhonda Marriage, I'm one of the speakers as well.
Right, thanks Rhonda.
But I'm here today to speak about the Westminster Retirement Village at Andergrove. There's been a disgusting issue over there for the aged residents. There's 37 aged residents or disabled residents over there that have been left in dire straits with nobody to help them. Every level of government that we've approached to help have passed the buck because it is not in their jurisdiction. There are things like both fire extinguishers that are at that premises are out of date. There is no fire hose available for any of the residents to use if necessary. Both emergency phones have been pulled out of the wall by the current manager who is acting as manager for that residential facility. A resident was found unconscious and blue last Wednesday. A disabled resident had to do CPR until the ambulance arrived, as there's no defibrillator on the property. The sick resident is still in ICU, and I believe she's had a further 3 heart attacks. So this is really abhorrent to us as a community, and these people need help. Footpaths overgrown had to get the gurney in to clean the footpaths of this residence. There are air conditioners that are not working. One man's been in his unit for 8 years with no air conditioning. There's maggots in the bins. There's out-of-date food in the kitchen, which has subsequently been closed and locked off to the residents. Their facility for social contact, our little meeting hall and the dining hall, has been closed to them as well. They're in small units, so they don't have any meeting place where they can go and have a bit of social contact, play cards, talk, whatever. It's all been locked off to them by the owners of this particular place. They did have a disabled resident, Annie, who voluntarily took over the full-time cooking at one stage. This was voluntary. She wasn't paid for her work. She wasn't allowed to have days off. There's only 2 PowerPoints on the bench and one that collect water. The council has given a 5-star rating to this facility as far as their kitchen facilities go, which needs to be looked into by council. Annie had to buy all food for the preparation of food for the residents from Woolworths and Coles, only because the manager wanted the rewards points. Cheaper catering outlets were forbidden. So towards the end of this time, Helen paid Annie a disgusting $100 per week for all this work she was doing. Annie's health caused her to stop doing this. Helen is the manager. She's changed the locks to the only communal area, as I said, so none of the residents have that access to that facility. Many of the residents only have bar fridges in their unit. It's like a motel. There's no cooking facilities. Some have microwave ovens. We were privileged to speak to one member before at a Christmas lunch that the community put on for these people, and he was really asking, pleading for help from us as volunteers from the community.
Thanks,
But he
Ms.
died
Marriage.
2 weeks ago, without any help.
Ms. Marriage, thank you very much. You've gone well over 3 minutes, but thank you very
And
much.
thank you for that time.
Thank you.
But we really need some help
Thank
from
you.
our council.
Thank you.
And please,
Thanks.
please act on behalf of these people.
Thanks, Ms. Marriage. Thank you. Is there a Liz Dryer?
Yes.
How do we say your surname?
Dryer.
Dryer, thank you
Yes,
very
that's
much.
how I
And
pronounce Dryer.
once again, 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
So, good afternoon, councillors, and I wish to send to you a belated Merry Christmas. And I hope that you had a lovely Christmas meal with your family and friends. Now, I'd like to share with you what my husband and I did on Christmas Day. So, we shared Christmas lunch with the residents of the Westminster Lodge Retirement Village. And thanks to our wonderful support of the Mackay community and our friends, we were able to brighten the day for these senior members of the Mackay community. They were provided with food and drinks and treats and gifts. Now, there are some of these residents who have impairments and they need to be assisted to come to the veranda where we were forced to have our luncheon. Despite the rain, we managed to give these wonderful seniors a bit of happiness in what would have been a very bleak day alone in their units. And at the end of the day, we were also able to help them back to their units with a couple more meals and gifts. So you may wonder why we had the Christmas lunch on the veranda on a very rainy day. And as was mentioned before, the reason for this is because the senior residents had been locked out of the retirement village kitchen, dining room and communal room. But thankfully, to our Mackay community, we came up with tables and chairs and eskies and all the necessary catering supplies. It was truly a humbling experience sharing Christmas Day with these wonderful senior residents, and it was truly amazing the very generous helpers from the Mackay community. We will never forget this very special day and their gratitude to us. Now you may wonder how many councillors turned up to support their constituents. Well, despite them knowing, not one thought it important enough to give up their special day and support senior members of the Mackay community who were facing a very sad, hungry and lonely day. So I do hope that you remember your Christmas Day 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Dryer. So, is Mr. Dryer, are you speaking as well? Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to address this directly to the Mayor regarding the Westminster Lodge Retirement Village. In September 2022, provision of all food was withdrawn in spite of the fact that their residential contract provided 3 meals per day. Greg, your own email admits that you're aware of this. Greg, what did you do at this point? Did you question what would happen to these residents who do not have cooking facilities in their room and could no longer feed themselves? Did you ask how those in a wheelchair or those too frail to walk without a walking aid would be able to get to and from the supermarket, let alone make a meal for themselves? Or did you just shirk any community responsibility and accept that these elderly residents should now just be left to fend for themselves? And shall we remind you of your actions on the 15th of December, when you were called to the lodge over a dispute with volunteers who were freely giving their time, money and food to feed these people? For the benefit of those who may not know, volunteers were cooking a meal when the manager walked in and told them to get out. And you, Greg, were called. Perhaps the other councillors could ask you why you took the manager into a private room and had a private conversation. And on the way out, you said to the volunteers, I'll go back to my office and see what I can do. Perhaps a question should be asked as to why you did nothing. Why didn't you take the time to speak to any of these residents? And why did all bar 6 of these residents go to bed unfed and hungry that night? The question should be asked as to what your motives are by not acting, because anyone with conscience would have jumped into action over this disastrous action. These people have deteriorated in health since this began, and anyone who bothers to spend some time with them can see that. But you haven't done that, have you? I wonder how you sleep at night. I think now more than ever, it's time to remind you, you were elected by the community as a mayor to serve the community, and you can just as easily be elected out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dry. Are there any further speakers? We haven't got any red registrations here, so
Mayor Robinson, may I just have one comment, please?
you've had your 3 minutes.
No, this is not a talk, I just wanted to introduce you to one of the residents who's here. The lady at the end in the wheelchair is Vera, and she's one of the 37 residents that have been affected by this, and she is really distressed, as they all are, and they need your help. Please.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right, there's no further public participation. Late business. Any late business? No late business? We have 4 confidential reports to consider. Is there any need to go into confidence? Okay, well, if there's no need to deal with those in a confidential manner, we'll deal with them right now. The Legal Services Monthly Report. The Legal Services Monthly Report. Would somebody like to move its adoption? Councillor Bonventura moves. Councillor Mann seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Draft minutes of the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program Advisory Committee meeting of the 12th of December. Would somebody like to move? Councillor May moves. Seconded by Councillor Hassan. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. The approved sponsorship under the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program for December. Somebody like to move? Councillor Green moves. Seconded by Councillor Hassan. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. And the approved concessions under the Facilitating Development of the Mackay Region Policy for December 22. Councillor Mann moves. Councillor Green seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, CEO. I know you've got to go urgently. CEO's got an out-of-town meeting to attend and they'll be leaving us now. But thank you very much, councillors. Thanks, officers. Declare the meeting closed.